it off.
Oh boy, am I thirsty. There's nothing in the fridge. A glass of honey. Quite refreshing. Alright, so I'm in the kitchen tonight doing some experimenting, taste testing, comparison, and I was just gonna basically taste test or compare between my honey and my dad's honey, and I got sidetracked and I spotted a honey bun, and I was kind of curious, did it really have honey in it? So I read the label, and it does say that it has honey in it, but I would almost bet a whole bunch of money that it's such a negligible amount that you probably couldn't find it in a lab test. Nonetheless, they are very, very tasty. But that's not the subject of my video tonight. Really what I was going to focus on is knowing where you get your honey from and the importance of that. So these are my honey, my dad's honey, both off the same type of bees, same time of year, and this is from his house, this is from my house, and as the crow flies, we're about 3 miles apart, so you know, it's off, basically it should be the same type of vegetation, but obviously mine got into something that made the honey darker, which I like. I prefer the look of that. It's just a nice dark rich color, and that doesn't indicate what the flavor will be or the quality of the honey or anything like that. It's just, I just like it looking dark like that. And as you can see, the difference in his looks like a dark beer. Yuck. But there is a pretty big difference, especially for the bees being so close to one another. That those are two of ours. These all come from producers that are not local to us, but I know where they came from. I know the source, so I'm not concerned with this being an unhealthy product with chemicals or it's been pasteurized or anything like that. This is all organic honey, and this is my favorite. I hate to say it over mine, but this one tastes better than mine. But every season you're going to have a different taste, and I can have 2 hives on the same yard right next to each other and get a different taste honey out of the 2 hives occasionally. It's funny how that works, but it's pretty interesting too. But this is called Tupelo honey. These 3 here are all out of Florida producers. This is Orange Blossom honey, Tupelo honey, Tupelo honey. This one here is out of a producer near Houston, Texas. I bought this just basically to taste test it. It's one of those cinnamon mixes. It's supposed to cure everything but fat and ugly, so I'm out of luck there. But if you open the lid and puff it a little bit, you immediately catch a cinnamon smell, and it's not bad. It really tastes pretty good, but the taste of the cinnamon overpowers the honey, so you don't really taste honey, you just taste sweet cinnamon. But it's kind of hot too. Reminds me of those spicy toothpicks we used to get when we were kids at a convenience store, and take them to school in the 7th and 8th grade and sit in class and think we were tough, holding them in our mouths till the flavor went away. And that's what that reminds me of. But it's still good, and I highly recommend it. I wish I knew the name of the producer off the top of my head, but I don't. I would send you his direction, because it's a good product. This probably is the only one real honey in the house that I don't know where it came from. You can see the water content in it is pretty low. It's a good thick honey. This little bottle was a syrup bottle from Cracker Barrel or something, but it's got honey in it now. Stuff like Grey Poupon is a craft product. This is savory honey flavor, made with clover honey, it says, but whatever's in it is pasteurized and probably ultra filtered, and no telling where it comes from. So you know, not that anybody's concerned with their health when they're buying honey mustard. There's another brand of honey mustard. This one, I have no clue. I know it comes out of Texas, so it may have real honey in it, but I still would say it's probably pasteurized. So the deal with pasteurizing honey is that it takes out anything that you're buying the honey for health reasons. It takes out any of that. It takes out all the healthy enzymes and the ultra filtering and all that. Takes out the pollen and everything that you would get any kind of benefit as far as being resistant to allergies or any what do you call them? My mind went blank. Anyway, the stuff you get from blueberries, antioxidants, any of that stuff would be removed by pasteurizing and ultra filtering. So if you buy honey that's been pasteurized and ultra filtered, or just pasteurized, basically all you're doing is buying a sweetener. So if you're buying it, if you're going to, I don't want to name stores, but if you're going to a big box store and you're buying honey for health reasons, you're probably not getting the benefit that you think you are, because most of that, unless it says organic or it says not pasteurized or something like that on it, unless it says something like that on it, you're probably just getting straight pasteurized honey, which you might as well just get you some sugar. You know, that's basically all you're getting. This honey here I found interesting. This, I know where this came from because it came off one of my hives, and if you can see that, it's a gel. This is about 1.5 gallons of honey I got off of one hive, and within about 2 weeks it turned to a gel, which it just sugared, but it went gel instead of a solid. And it's been like this since the beginning of the year, and this is October now. So it still tastes like honey, it still smells like honey, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just odd to me. I've never seen any do that before. Billy Bee. This is Billy Bee is a Canadian product. This was originally a spreadable honey, and it's been sitting near the toaster, so it's kind of liquefied somewhat. But the thing about Billy Bee is it is ultra filtered and pasteurized. It is Canadian honey, but there's no health benefit to it. All it is now is a sweetener. It's got a really pungent odor to me. It's nothing like ours. It doesn't smell or taste anything like ours. It's got the flavor is very similar to the smell of it, and there's nothing wrong with it. I've smelled Billy Bee before, and this smells just like the others that I've smelled. The reason they pasteurize it is it increases the shelf life, and when I say the shelf life, honey doesn't go bad per se, but it can turn to sugar, and you can imagine what financial crisis some of these companies might be in if they were having to go pick up thousands of jars of honey that had turned to sugar, and people were scared something was wrong with them. So they basically they almost have to pasteurize it or treat it in some way. So they're pasteurized, ultra filtered, and ultra filtering. The reason that is bad is that it takes all the pollen out of it, which the pollen is a lot of what you get your benefit from honey out of. But the bad thing about that is when they take all the pollen out, you can't tell the origin of the honey. And a lot of big box stores sell honey that comes from China or other places that don't have the strict regulations that we have in the United States, and so some of it has pesticides and other chemicals in it, and you know, it's ultra filtered for a reason, so you can't track it, and they can basically pull the wool over our eyes for financial gain. But this is I thought he had it on his label. Yeah, he does. This is one of my dad's jars, and this is, I'll show you part of his label. Stinger juice is what they call, my dad and my brother came up with this name, or my brother did actually, and my dad adopted it too, but Stinger juice is what they call theirs. I'm not going to show the phone number, not because I don't want you to know who I am, but because I don't want him being bombarded with phone calls, because he basically sells all of his honey, and he's almost out of it now. So by the end of September, he has nothing left to sell. But if it says local and organic, and you're standing right there looking at the guy that jarred it up, I would say you're pretty safe in getting it. But you really need to know where your honey comes from, and I highly recommend buying it from someone local to you. And when I say local, it doesn't have to be in your neighborhood. A lot of people get funny about that. Even some honey producers that I know are funny about they're funny about selling honey 2 or 3 hours away, and people calling it local, and they don't think that's local anymore. Well, it kind of depends on where you're at. We've got a guy that's 3 hours north of us. Matter of fact, I did a video on his place. I think the video is called Honey Wonderland Tour. That's it. He is 3 hours north of me, but his honey I would consider local to me, and vice versa, because we have the same type of plant growth and same everything that his bees get honey off of, my bees get honey off of. And so anything that, if I was taking it for allergy reasons, whatever's growing in his place is growing here, and he, just because of the distance, he's north of me, and because of the distance, some of his seasons might come on earlier or later. But regardless of that, his bees are still going to have access to the exact same plants that my bees are going to have access to. So I would consider his a local honey. Now that, for me, that would change going east and west, because an hour west of me you're getting over into Louisiana swamps, and of course that's going to be a different type of ecology over there, so the bees over there are going to be picking up different things. And same thing going to Florida. I guess probably 2 hours that way you get over past the Mobile Bay and into this side of Florida, and the plant life over there is going to be a little different. So I would not consider those two local honey, but anything from, you know, middle Mississippi to the coast I would, for me. So, you know, you have to take that into consideration when you go to shopping around for who you want to buy honey from. This one here is honey off of one of our hives a while back. I think this has been in the cabinet a couple of years now. But this is comb honey, and it'll last forever, just like any other honey will. And when I say comb honey, basically all you do is you're cutting a piece of honeycomb, sticking it in a jar, and then filling the rest of the jar with honey. But what's interesting about this is the bottom is starting to turn to sugar, and so we're going to have to do something with this before the whole thing turns to sugar, and the comb is basically locked in there until you heat it up and get it back out. Okay, so now I'm going to do what I came in here to do in the first place, which is a taste comparison. I was just going to do these two, but now that I've got all these out, I'm going to try them all out. This is my dad's honey from this year, from his yard in South Mississippi. This is my honey from this year from my yard in South Mississippi. You can see a little bit of color difference there, as I demonstrated with the flashlight too. This is that honey that's in with the comb. It's a little bit thicker. They say honey gets better with age. I don't know that to be the case. It may not, I don't know. They say it's like wine, it gets better with age, so take that for what it's worth. These both are Tupelo honey. That's what they're labeled. Both from different producers, both from Florida. Now you can tell, I can tell right away that this honey is not ultra filtered. Now I knew that anyway, but I can tell it because when I poured it, I don't know if you saw that, but a tiny little fly came out of it. And anybody with a weak stomach or is a germaphobe might have an issue with that. I don't have an issue with that. That's a very rare case, and that tells me that this didn't come through an operating room. It came through somebody that was raising their own bees and bottling their own honey and not processing it in a way that would be harmful to the honey. This is orange blossom honey, and this is that cinnamon honey, which I'll save for last because if I taste it, it will overpower the taste of anything else here. So let's go with the gelled honey here. This is about a year old, I guess. I don't know, maybe somewhere around there. It's not bad. This is that honey with the comb in it. That actually has a pretty good flavor to it. That's my dad's honey. And mine. Now these are very similar. I think mine has a little milder flavor than his, but they're very similar in flavor. This is Tupelo honey. This is the light color one here. I already know is one of my favorites. Compared with this one's not quite as thick and it's a little darker. And it does have a different flavor. This one's a better flavor than this. Like I say, they're both labeled Tupelo honey and they're both out of Florida. This is orange blossom honey. That's a different flavor, but it's still a really good honey. And then this cinnamon honey, of course I already know what it tastes like, but it tastes like a hot cinnamon toothpick. Very good stuff, I like that. So, buy local honey. Make sure you know it's local honey. And don't buy processed junk. Oh, and I almost forgot. There is a really good article. If you Google fake honey, it'll be the first thing that comes up. And that's probably what you'll see on the front page. This is about 9 pages printed out, but it's a good article on the fake honey that's in the stores and the ultra filtering process and pasteurizing and what's bad about Chinese honey and all this kind of stuff. So look that up if you get a chance and you want to read about it. Some good information there. Thanks for watching. Go buy some honey.